Handing back a long-term loan car isn't always easy. Case in point, the Mercedes-Benz GLS450 here has been my faithful companion for the past 6 months. I think it's pretty fair to say that I've gotten pretty fond of the big guy. As despite initial reservations about the sheer size of the Big Merc, I think I'm going to actually miss it. So, what has impressed the most about the S-Class of SUVs? And if you're in the market for a whole lot of Benz, what should you be mindful of? Well, let's find out. In case you've missed it, here's the story so far with our GLS450. We've had the Mercedes-Benz SUV flagship in our driveway for the past 6 months, and have spent time with it both around town and on country touring trips, amassing some 6,500 kilometres. For Australian buyers, our car came in at $165,000 before on-road costs. Our car is finished in selenite grey and includes the night package for black trim and the 22-inch AMG wheels, interior innovation package which adds dynamic interior lighting and augmented navigation, and the e-active body control system, which is a must-have in your GLS, but more on that later. All right, well, if the birds let us get a word in, let's talk about one of the best things about the GLS, the usable space inside. Now, it is a full 3-row 7-seater, but in its best way, when you've got all 3 rows up, you can still use the boot. You've got power adjustable seats, so you can easily fold the 2nd and 3rd row from here. You can raise and lower the rear of the car with the air suspension, plus there's even storage for the cargo blind under the floor, which is really convenient if you are changing from a 5-seater to a 6 or a 7-seater. Now, I did plenty of family touring over the summer holidays here and was able to fit everything that I needed in the car without even coming up over that basic seat height. So there was still great visibility out the rear window. So in terms of big car, big space, the GLS gets a big tick. Well, while on the topic of size, rear passenger space is yet another area where the big footprint GLS certainly shines. This is S-Class of SUVs kind of legroom. Now, I'm 6'3", that seat's in my driving position. I have a stack of legroom, a stack of headroom, and kind of everything else room. It is really comfortable back here. You can adjust the seat base and the backrest and even the headrest. But one of the most disappointing things about the GLS is if you do move these seats to get someone into the 3rd row, which tends to happen at school pickup, they reset to a generic position, meaning that all the fine tuning you've done to get just as comfortable as you need to be has to be done every single time you move these seats. And quite frankly, that's a software setting and something that perhaps Mercedes-Benz should maybe look at in the future. Also worth noting, you do get tri-zone climate control back here. Well, I can adjust that with a digital display here, but there's no rear heated seats as standard, which at a car at this level, I'd perhaps like to see. Same with window blinds that are integrated within the door. You see it in things like the BMW X5, even the BMW X3 has them. I would have liked to have seen that on the GLS in a standard specification. Let's check out the front. I just want to paint a picture of the technology available in this car. And I guess rather than the car having technology, I feel that it is a technology platform with a car wrapped around it. So ingrained are all the functions and features within the daily operating nature of the GLS. We have played with this for weeks. We've changed settings, we've changed screens, we've changed themes. There are days and days worth of customization and exploratory features available in the MBUX system. Now, some of the stuff that we've really liked is obviously the Mercedes-Benz voice assistant. It tends to work pretty well for both navigation and vehicle functions. There's something kind of nice about asking the car to give you a massage and it following through, but we find that even addresses tends to be pretty accurate, not 100% though. There is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto support in the car, but we tend to use the native Mercedes system. You've got the head-up display with its 3 panes. You've got the widescreen, twin-screen LCD dashboard. You do get very, very used to this, especially on long-distance touring, where you can change quickly between one setting to another, or even have nearly all the information you could possibly want at one time displayed in front of you. And long-distance touring is an area where the GLS absolutely shined. And if you are going to be doing big distances in comfort, this car is, well, again, another big tick. Well, another area where the GLS450 has really impressed is here. Now, you might be thinking, an enormous car like this with a 6-cylinder petrol engine, surely that's pointing towards bad fuel economy. And well, you know what, around town it was actually pretty good. We sort of settled in the 15 litre per 100 kilometre range. But the 3 litre Turbo 6 here is mated to a 48 volt mild hybrid system. So when you're dealing with stop-start traffic, the car uses its electrical power to run its standard systems, so you do get good engine shutdown. But then on a cruising cycle and sitting at around 100 kilometres an hour for sustained driving, the thing settles into high 9s or low 10 litre per 100 kilometre range, which is hugely impressive for such an enormous car and for a petrol engine. Plus, under heavy load, you get the added boost, or as Mercedes call it, the EQ boost of that 48 volt system. So you get extra power and extra torque for sharp acceleration. And I found never wanting for power in this thing. It's very impressive, and especially on a longer trip. Now, we're about to go for a drive, but I will now talk about probably one of the most contentious parts of the GLS. Yeah, it's not the most attractive car Mercedes-Benz has produced in the last few years. Now personally, I actually don't mind it. I think it's brutally kind of square and blocky and it's unapologetic. And I really do like the way it looks from the rear. It does look better in its lowest park height as it is now, but that slab-sided nose and kind of shorter front quarter doesn't really win fans universally. Keen to hear what you say, let us know in the comments below. Well, the first thing you notice as you ease away in the GLS is this sort of effortless sense of power. That 3 litre Turbo 6 with 270 kilowatts plus an extra 16 in its EQ boost mode and 500 Newton meters plus an extra 270 in its EQ boost mode is more than enough. It's a really sort of silky smooth drivetrain. The 9-speed 9G-tronic transmission works really well. So in terms of regular driving, it's a smooth and powerful car to deal with around town. But what it has above all else, and we have the $13,000 e-active body control option fitted to this car, which has got a camera sensor in the front that scans the road ahead and tells the air suspension to adjust its dampening as you come up to bumps to give you a much more comfortable ride. And it's amazing, like it is so comfortable, this car. You find that in the right conditions, you can hit a speed hump and you will barely feel it. And it really is an impressive car. On a long trip, it's an impressively comfortable car. However, I will say the technology isn't faultless. And on a number of occasions, if it's dark, if it's rainy, it doesn't quite get it right. And you can sort of hit the same speed hump at the same speed that you went over earlier in the day, and you don't feel that same magic carpet ride compression on it. And look, I get it, it's harder to see at night. Sometimes the laser or the radar scanning the road ahead can't see as well as it can in other conditions. But it's proof that we're still a long way away from a full sort of level 7 self-driving experience, even with a car as advanced as this one. Curve mode is really cool too, but you can only really use it on tight winding roads where the car lifts its suspension to flatten the cabin out. So you go into corners faster than you sort of should because you think the car's not doing what it should, and well, it sometimes makes you feel a little uneasy, but it is impressive technology regardless. And running about town, one of the concerns that I had certainly very early on was the sheer size of the car. I didn't want to go down some laneways or pull into some driveways because it feels enormous. You do get used to that. And the sensors around the car and the cameras all work really, really well. And I found I've become much more confident with the size of the car, except when it comes to parking. You need a massive spot. So yes, it's big. Yes, you've got a lot of space. Yes, you get used to the size, but it's still impossible to park. And on many occasions, I find myself either walking to the shops or looking for a smaller car to take just because I don't want to try and find a spot that's big enough to fit the GLS. Now, one of the other areas where the technology in the car is terrific, but perhaps not quite finely tuned to the nth degree, is in the driver assist technology. So where I said that the e-active body control is sometimes a bit hit and miss, the driver assist stuff is also not 100% of the way there. Country driving, you find that if you move out of your lane ever so slightly to avoid, say, a cyclist or a tractor or something, the lane keeping assistant will quite aggressively pull you back in. Also too, when you've got cruise control on, and again in a country setting, you come up to a roundabout and the car knows and it automatically slows down, and it's very clever. But it's sometimes a bit disconcerting when it does that for corners as well, especially if you've got a car relatively close behind. And again, if you are sort of driving to the conditions, not quite there. Plus, a couple of times we've had sort of false positives on the autonomous emergency braking, which is never a bad thing, I guess, but again, still not 100% of the way there. More often than not though, everything works perfectly and it is a terrific tourer. It is just a supremely luxurious and comfortable car, and I think the question as to whether it fulfills the brief of being the S-Class of SUVs, I think it's actually done really, really well. But you do need the e-active body control option to do that. And it makes it sort of from 140 something to 160 something $1,000 car, which I don't actually think is that expensive given for what it is. So if you are shopping for a very impressive, modern, techno-filled, luxurious 7-seater, then the GLS450 is certainly worth a look. But then, of course, one of the coolest things about ticking that e-active body control box is something that you never really will ever use, but it's certainly fun to impress your friends. The bouncy free driving mode. I'll be seeing you later. Well, with all that said and done, it still feels like it's going to be a somewhat emotional farewell to our long-term GLS450. If you have any questions about the biggest Benz on the block, don't forget you can hit us up in the comments below. And as always, hit subscribe to stay up to date with all of our latest videos, and click the bell icon to receive a notification every time a new video is published. Of course, if you want to learn even more about the Mercedes-Benz GLS450 and our whole long-term adventures, you can read all of the updates over at CarAdvice.com.